All right, guys, welcome back to the shack. And tonight I am sporting my zipper hoodie here. So for all you guys that want to be the wardrobe police out there, go right ahead. But this thing is comfortable. It's one of those nights where we had 30-degree weather for 2 days, and tonight we're in the 50s. So it's not quite warm enough for one of my big hoodies, but it's a little cooler than I like it for t-shirts. And so this is the middle ground. But tonight, guys, I want to get back to a topic that I have been battling with, and I've been getting some messages from some other folks that are having this same issue and these battles. And I've been doing a little research to try to figure out some things to help pass on. And I've been doing some experimentation on my own, and that is the CO2. This CO2 has been a challenge for me, learning how to set, where to set the focus and where to run the power and all those things. So I'm going to kind of go through where I'm at with my CO2 build, where I want to be with my CO2 build, the things that I've found that I like about it, and the things I found that I don't. So we're just going to kind of run the whole gamut over the CO2. And this is going to be the Monport CO2 that was sent to me to try out, and just going to throw that little thing up there. I don't know how long I got to keep doing that, but just so you know, machine was sent to me to try out, but that's not going to dictate, whether I'll say anything good or bad. And so far, like I said, it's a tool. It works as it was supposed to. I'm just not real good with it yet, but we're going to get there. So if that's something you're interested in with the K40 series machines, because I think they're pretty much all the same with the exception of a few upgrades that this one has, then stick around for a few minutes and we're going to dive into what I have done to this one and what I've learned. All right, guys, so here is the tour of the Monport 40 watt that I have. As you can see, I have added a air assist nozzle to the machine. Basically, this is the factory replacement mirror holder, nozzle, and everything. I have ran the air assist through the drag chain. It goes into this compartment here and comes out on that side of the machine. And underneath the table here, I have the regulator and the water separator that feeds the machine, and that's where I turn my air supply off and on. This machine did come light burn compatible, and so it's a little different than some of the other machines that are on the market. It does still have the milliamp gauge, but this one has the digital gauge, which measures the output of the laser. It also has a limiter here that you can limit the output, which I've got it set to maximum, but I'll just go ahead and show you. Let me see if you can see that little screen or not. You should be able to see it. Even at maximum, this is a reference conversion numbers that came from the manual with the machine. This basically gives you milliamp consumption and translates it over to a percentage of the power. Monport recommended that you not run the machine over 60% output. So I stopped the conversion chart at 60% output because I don't want to go over that. So according to Monport, at 60% output, this thing should be drawing 21 milliamps. All right, if you hit this button here, this is kind of like the manual button for firing the laser. Let me throw a piece of wood in there because I know it doesn't really matter because it's going to burn through it in just a second, but I just don't like dry firing. So if you push that button with this potentiometer all the way to the right, that is maximum output, or it's supposed to be. So I'm going to push this button and kind of, if I can do it without blocking the camera, and you can watch that reading. If I hold that down completely, it's showing 19 milliamps. So 19 milliamps is all this thing's putting out wide open, which means technically, according to Monport's calculations, that's going to be somewhere in the range of 52% output. So I don't know if they've done something on the back end to limit the output of this machine to 60%, or what the deal is, or if I just got one that doesn't pull a whole lot of current. Not sure what the issue is, or if there is an issue, but so far I haven't had any issues with going over the 60%, which according to this is 21 milliamps. The most I can get this thing to draw is 19, which puts you, like I said, around 52.5%. So at that output, of course, it does burn exceptionally well through stuff, but without the air assist, the one thing that I will tell you, if you get one of these machines, air assist is a must, because I was having terrible times with flames until I put the air assist on there, and that cured that problem. So I had a little bit more freedom to play with the power settings and move the power settings up and down as I please. Now, the second thing that I'm having an issue with, and I think some other folks are having an issue with too, is this is the tool that came with the Monport for adjusting the focus. The way this was intended with the factory cover on here was you put this on there and then you touch the material with it, and that's how you set your focus. This is a ramp test that I did just now, and I finally figured out what's going on here with my kerf, I believe. So let me grab a screwdriver so that I can take this air assist off, and I'm going to show you guys what I have determined that I believe the problem to be. This is my ramp test that I did just a minute ago, and this is way closer to the laser than what traditionally I would have to put the material. But this is the kerf I've been getting right about here. All right, if you go up, you see it's getting smaller and smaller. It starts getting a little bit bigger after that. So I'm thinking the problem here is that when I went from this factory device, and if you look at this device, this thing is made, this bolt's under here against that. The lens on this one is all the way down here on the very bottom of this piece. If you look, there's this huge shoulder right here. All right, on this one that I've currently have installed, these rings right here are right here. Even with these rings are even with the bottom of this plate here, and so that gives us a difference of this much. That the lens was this much further toward the material than what it is now with the new setup. So that's going to be our issue. And this thing I thought was plug and play pretty much, but there is some focusing that's going to have to be done, some changes to the way this thing focuses. If you look, that's 9.7 millimeters right there. All right, so you've got 9.7 millimeters. Where before this would screw onto here like so, which is what this guy did. Now this is screwing on technically about right here. So you're losing about 9 millimeters of the distance downward toward the material. So if my reasoning is correct, what I need to do is basically I'm going to have to raise my focus up around 9 millimeters with this nozzle. So without having a movable bed space, that means I'm going to have to improvise because I can't adjust the base, which that is, I have a plan to upgrade this and make it to where I can adjust the Z-axis on this machine, but currently I cannot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this back together because I've seen a lot of other people saying that they've had the same problems, that they've put the air assist on and now they've got like 0.5 millimeter kerf and everything changed. Well, I'm going to set up another ramp just to show you guys, and we're gonna experiment. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to be able to bring the cut all the way up basically to the laser head. And this little clamp's pretty handy. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set this up to where I'm barely missing the laser head. All right, and it's falling that way. So I'm going to set this up. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to change my little cut over just a little, just to get it to frame, and then I'm going to run that and we're going to look at it. All right, so now what I'm going to do, I'm going to shut the lid and I'm going to fire that off and see what it does. Now I will be turning my air assist on to prevent any flames, because with the laser being this out of focus, there's definitely going to be some flaming. All right, so opening it back up. So there's what we got, guys. I'm gonna try to zoom you in there where you can see a little better. That's what I end up with. And you can see how the beam is wider at the bottom and wider at the top. What you're looking for is that sweet spot right in the middle right there. So after a lot of testing, guys, that's what I determined was the problem, is when I put the air assist nozzle on there, it relocated the lens. And each one of these lenses is set to a specific focal length, meaning that in order for the laser beam to be in focus, the material that it's impacting has to be a certain distance from that lens. So by moving the lens upward, we've actually moved the focal point upward as well. And so I figured that's got to be what the problem is, because this thing actually had a pretty good kerf and a pretty fine pinpoint burn spot before the upgrade. Now, it's working as it should. The air assist this one is actually pretty sturdy. It stays on there. I like the way it's built. It's easy to take off to clean. If you want to take it off altogether and not run it, you can do so. I like the air assist. But because of the air assist, it created the problem with the focus. But one of the other downsides that I had with this machine, other than it not having an air assist, was I'm not crazy about this solid metal burn surface. I get a lot of flashback burns on wood, and especially with acrylics and stuff like that, it seemed to build up a lot of like just gummy mess. And so I'd been wanting to put a work bed inside the machine anyway. I had considered getting me a small honeycomb, but the only problem I had with the honeycomb was that if I added a honeycomb to the existing work bed, it would have raised my material up until it was out of focus. So by adding the air assist, I actually created myself a benefit that I didn't know I had. So my cure for the focusing issue that I have is that I decided to take a piece of steel, and I've got myself a little small piece of steel that I cut. I picked this up at Tractor Supply. I used a pair of standard heavy-duty Klein wire cutters to cut it to the specific size that I wanted it. And I'm going to use this as my work bed. And to get the space up to account for the 9 millimeters or so, give or take, of the lens being raised, I've added these two magnets. Now, the combined height of this whole little apparatus here is about 11.5 millimeters. And I know what you're thinking, but you only raised the machine only raised up, you know, around 9 millimeters, maybe 9.5. But I'm cutting 4.5 millimeter material. So if you take half of that 4.5 millimeter material, that's like 2.25 millimeters to the center of the material. So if I take 9 and I add, you know, 2.25 to it from my 4.5 millimeter material, that gives me about 11.5 millimeters, and that would put my focal point directly in the middle of my 4.5 millimeter material, which is where this machine seems to be giving me the hardest time, is cutting wood. So that was what I decided to do. And now I'm going to show you how this thing cuts with my little bit of redneck engineering here, which gives me a workspace, plus it corrects the issue that I created by adding the air assist, which air assist is a must on this, guys. It's worth having to go through this, especially when you find out that by adding the air assist, now you can also modify your work bed and have something that air can flow through, and you won't get quite as much flashback burns on the backside of your material. So let me move the camera around and we'll show you what I got. All right, guys, so there is my new engineered bed that I have designed. And just to give you an idea, I'm going to take this is the little tool that they gave you, and if you put it on the top of this bed, it's brought it up significantly. But keep in mind, the lens on this one is right in here. So I'm a little high, but like I said, I'm cutting 4.5 millimeter material, so I'm okay with the trade-off. If I can get better cutting ability on wood, I'm okay with the kerf being a little bit larger than what it has to be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this piece of material in here, and I'm going to burn a shape in it. I'm going to mark it, and then I'm going to take my newly applied cutting surface out, and we're going to do the same burn. Now, you can see the kerf size. It is significantly less than what it has been being. So I'm going to run that same speed, and I'm going to run it without my insert in there. This thing's a little tricky getting in and out. I made it just big enough to go in the work area. So I'm gonna run this same burn, but I'm gonna move it down and redo that. So now I did change the engraving part of that burn so that it wouldn't take as long. I went ahead and set it to CO2 speeds as well as set it to fill all at once so that it'd get done a little quicker. But this is the same exact speed that I ran on the cut when I ran it elevated like it was. And I just want to show you the difference between the kerf and the line size. And then I'm gonna go back and we're gonna raise it back up. And well, actually I'll do it on the floor here at a little bit better cut speed, and then we'll raise it back up. But there's the two burns, guys. And as you can see, the kerf with it on the factory base is way larger. All right. Now, both of those on this particular piece of plywood, both of those were way too fast to make it all the way through. But I'm going to move that burn down just a little bit. I'm going to slow it down to about 8 millimeters per second and go from there. I'm going to run this at 8 millimeters per second at 60% output, which is less output. And that's what I'm learning about this machine is it's not necessarily about the output on this thing. It will surprise you. Sometimes it cuts better with less output. So, got that going. Like I said, this is going to be a much slower speed, and I am running air assist. I've got my air assist turned on, providing some pretty good air pressure. So, and as you can see, the line size is still drastically larger. Even though I reduced the power down to 60% and lowered the speeds, and I got no penetration on the back side here. So I'm gonna put my rack back in, and we're gonna try this again with the exact same settings, but with the rack in. So I'm gonna move it over to there and run that same burn, but I'm gonna name it elevated. The engrave is also being run at the same settings I did when I had it lowered. So you'll probably be able to tell a little bit of difference in the engraving as well, as far as the kerf size and the way the letterings are being burned in. And this is 60% output, and that's 60% of 60%. It's running 8 milliamps right now on the output gauge. So technically, according to Monport, that's 15% overall power output if you use their conversion chart. All right. Look at that, guys. Factory bed, not even so much as a penetration at all. Elevated it up 11.5 millimeters to the base of the material, and I got a clean drop, one cut. If you look you can look at the text here. The second one, I ran these exactly the same settings on the text, and you can see this one, it's not quite as clear. It's a little fuzzier. And like I said, that's running air assist. So that has been the problem this whole time. What I'm gonna do now, I wanna set up just a box just to keep demonstrating. I'm gonna run a high speed, low output line here, and then we're gonna move down and do it below as well. All right, there it is, guys. Look at the kerf size on that line. So that's pretty awesome. All right, taking my rack back out. I know this is a lot of demonstrating, guys, but some of you guys are hard-headed. So I gotta demonstrate. Now I'm running out of room. I'm gonna try to place this next one right below that one, since I'm not trying to cut it. Even though there is a knot right there, I'm not trying to cut this, so hopefully the knot won't be a concern. All right, that gives me enough room to work. And this is on the factory bed space, guys, running the new air assist nozzle. And I just want to show you the difference in the fineness of the laser. It is obviously a focusing issue. So for all those guys that messaged me today and asked me if I'd been having problems and all that, this is what I have found. So even at those high speeds, guys, you can see the difference in the kerf of the laser. So that's really all I know to tell you guys. Make yourself, if you've got this particular air assist nozzle, make yourself an 11.5 inch spacer, and you can just make one out of wood and try it. If you're having this issue, get you some scrap wood, space your laser up, 10 to 11 inches, 11 millimeters. Try the cut, see if you have any better luck, and if you do, then you can go for the more permanent approach like I have here. And just for argument's sake, I'm going to run another cut in the center of this thing, and we'll call it quits. There we go, guys. So you can see I still get a little bit of flashback burn on the backside when it hits the metal. But from what I've read with a CO2, especially if you run in higher power settings, you're going to get a little bit of that. But the front side of this thing, clean cut, everything dropped. The little hole fell out. So if you have this air assist, you're going to need to do this, or probably any air assist, to be honest. All right, guys, sorry it took me so long to get back to this. I had 2 or 3 people had messaged me saying that they had a CO2, whether it be a K40 or a Monport. A couple people said they had ordered a Monport, added the air assist, and they were having trouble with this. And like I said, I try to help out and try to figure things out that a lot of times people can overlook. And that was what, I had a conversation with somebody today on Facebook Messenger over by my Facebook page. And I told them that I too was having the problem and that I believed that it was focus related. And tonight's experiment, I confirmed that it was focus related and figured out what was causing it and come up with a solution. So I call that a win in my book. A little bit of redneck engineering, and I've got this thing cutting like it's supposed to, because guys, it was getting a little frustrating because I felt like with the power that I saw out of this thing in the beginning, I didn't know if maybe I had messed something up when I reinstalled everything as far as the nozzle goes, or if something had happened to the machine and it was losing power. I wasn't sure. But I did the ramp test, and that confirmed for me that it was a focus issue, because you could see that the point of the bed was too wide as far as that line, because you'll see the thick line at the top. It'll get thinner as you go down and then thicker at the bottom. And so then I wanted to know what changed. And so that's when I dissected the new nozzle and compared the location of the lens. And then that's when it hit me that it was because they had moved the lens up. And like I said, give or take, it's about 9 millimeters difference from the factory setup. But like I said, I moved my bed space up 11.5 millimeters or so. And what that does is on 4.5 millimeter material, that penetrates my focal point into the material, which minimizes the kerf as the laser cuts it. Because if you hit the surface of the material, the kerf is going to be thinnest on the surface, and as it goes through, it's going to get thicker. It's going to come out on the back side. You're actually going to have the wide kerf on the back. So perfect scenario is you want your focal point inside the material to minimize the kerf. And so far, this works. I'm back happy with the machine. I'm glad that it is doing better. So far, haven't had any problems. Like I said, that was an upgrade that I did. It was doing fine from the factory, but when I added the air assist, there came the issues. But I will be dropping a link for the air assist that I have in the description. If you're interested, you can go pick one up. I think I paid 20 bucks for this whole head. But if you do get one of these air assist nozzles, just know that when you swap it out, there will be some alignment that's going to be needed to do. You're going to need to make sure that from your second mirror out to the third mirror, you're going to want to make sure that thing is centered. You can use I use the painter's tape approach, putting painter's tape over the hole and firing it and seeing where it's hitting in the hole. But you will also have to make sure that the hole is twisted properly. If you get that thing twisted too far one way or the other, it's going to cause the laser light to bounce and reflect inside the nozzle. And what you'll end up seeing is when you do a test fire using the little test fire button, and I would recommend doing that on probably about a third of the power, like 33% power. If you go too high, it makes a really big beam. on the material, and you kind of want it as small as you can. There's no need to be overkilling. All you're wanting to do is make sure that the light goes through from mirror to mirror and down through the nozzle without being distorted. But if you get that thing twisted too far to the right or left, what you'll notice is it'll almost look like when you hit the fire button, you'll have a burn, and then you'll have almost like a little eyebrow shaped burn oriented somewhere around that. And what you've got to do is just rotate gently the cone and just keep test firing until you get that to where you have that pinpoint beam coming down with no kind of reflectivity burns around it or anything like that. That's what I did, and it works. The machine's working great now, and I'm pleased with it. I'll also put the links to the machine down below. If you're interested in a CO2 machine, this is my only CO2 machine that I've ever had, so I'm kind of, limited on what the machine, what machines are out there, but so far this one has performed pretty well. I don't have any complaints with it. Now that I've got my new grate in there, the air extraction for the exhaust actually seems to work a lot better, because when they built the machine, they put the exhaust port, even with the bed space, which I like a downdraft better. But since I've had to make my little makeshift bed, it is actually now somewhat of a downdraft table. So that's working better for me. But if you haven't already, guys, hit the subscribe button, give me a like, share, thumbs up, something. Whatever you can do to show some support for the channel. And I appreciate you. And once again, all the links that for the air assist and the machine will be down below, so if you're interested in those. And I hope this helps you guys out that were messaging me, asking me about this issue. And if you figure this out, is the problem that you're having is this, then by all means, put a comment in there, send me a message on Facebook, give me a hashtag or something, letting me know that you got it fixed and that this video was helpful for you. So until next time, guys, as always, be safe and have a good night.